Hello, I'm Barry Gordon.
And I'm Andre Coleman.
And this is NewsRap live at 5. Hello, and welcome back. We have a very special show today.
That's right.
About a very important issue, and we have a special guest to discuss it with us. So we will get to that in just a few minutes. But first, we always like to catch you up on what's going on and some of the important things.
This is what happened this week.
This is what happened this week, and also a couple of things about some meetings coming up that you're going to want to go to because you keep saying you want to get involved. So get involved. This is one way to do it.
Parents and students filled the chambers last night for the Pasadena Unified School District Board meeting to defend their schools. The PUSD is faced with closing schools and cutting programs in an effort to stabilize the district's budget. Dozens of people spoke, including staff, students, and parents, asking that their schools not be shut down.
There was no city council meeting this week, but look forward to council members holding community meetings to answer your questions. Council member Tyrone Hampton on October 11th at 6 o'clock p.m. at the Red Head Press. Council member Victor Gordo on October 17th at 6:30 p.m. at the Santa Catalina Branch Library. We'll be updating attendees on the district and citywide issues of public safety and on upcoming measures. Council member Andy Wilson on October 18th at 5:30 p.m. at the Hotel Constance Pasadena. We'll bring Jessica Harden and Steve Marmel to talk about Pasadena Film Festival as well as the upcoming ballot measures.
Kavanaugh is in and Haley is out. United States Ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley announced she would be leaving her position at the end of the year. During her 2 years as ambassador, the U.S. has pulled out of several UN agreements, including climate accords, economic partnerships, and several humanitarian relief efforts. She announced her departure in a press conference from the Oval Office alongside the president. She gave no explanation for her departure. The disappearance of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi has left the international community guessing. Initial reports were that Khashoggi was lured to the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, Turkey, a week ago, and that he was assassinated and possibly cut into pieces so that his body could be smuggled out. Turkey has come forward denouncing the alleged crime because it was committed on Turkish soil. The U.S. has not taken a firm stance against Saudi Arabia, saying only that if the accusations are true, there would be consequences for the Saudi regime. Khashoggi was an outspoken critic of Saudi policy. Hurricane Michael has ravaged the Florida Panhandle. Hurricane Michael was rated a Category 4 and nearly a Category 5 with winds over 150 miles per hour. Entire neighborhoods have been leveled and thousands of residents have been displaced. The White House has pledged to support hurricane victims, but reports once again focused on Trump, who held a political rally in Pennsylvania as the hurricane made landfall.
So, that's a nice recap of what went on.
But I guess if you're going to Hampton's event...
Yeah, you're not going to make Hampton's event if you haven't already been there because it was
yesterday.
Last night.
Yeah.
So,
but the other stuff...
Make the next
really
Hampton's
important.
Event. Yes, absolutely.
So what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm looking forward to this show because this is a subject that I care a lot about.
That's right.
And we have a number of propositions on the ballot. And we're going to be talking more and more about the propositions, about the election, because it's getting very, very close now. What is it? Some 25, 24 days.
A little more than 3 weeks out.
So it's getting very close. If you're an early voter, go ahead and vote. If you're not, get ready to vote.
That's right.
But however you do it, vote.
Either way, this is it.
That's right.
This is when we can begin to make a difference and bring some stability back to this country.
We can.
We have to make this move.
That's right. And we can make a difference to the state because there are a number of propositions, and one of them is Proposition 10. And it deals with the subject of rent control, or some people call it rent stabilization. And a lot of people, I think, misunderstand what this proposition is about. So we brought in someone who can explain it to us.
Big guns.
The big guns. He is a strong supporter of the Yes on 10 side. And by the way, anyone out there who wants to speak on the other side, No on 10, and knows what they're talking about, of course, please give us a call, and we will put you right in this show as well, because we want to hear from both sides. Even though the fairness doctrine was abolished by Reagan in 1987, I still believe in hearing from both sides, and we want to do that. But today, we're going to hear from a professor of politics who was the housing director of Boston for 9 years, and so really knows a lot about this subject, a frequent writer for The Nation, Huffington Post, American Prospect.
Sometimes the Pasadena Weekly.
Sometimes the Weekly. And so we are pleased to introduce Professor Dr. Peter Dreier. Peter, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for inviting me here.
Welcome.
It's great to have you. So I know this morning you were on Larry Mantle's show, so we're honored to have you with us as well. And you've been kind of doing the circuit talking about Prop 10. So why don't we start from the very beginning and kind of explain as easily as you can what Prop 10 is.
So the rent is too damn high. That's the bottom line.
We know that.
See,
yeah.
And,
that's my man right there. Just
okay.
tell it like it is.
So how do we deal with that?
Right.
Some cities in California would probably like to have some form of rent regulation to avoid the massive displacement and eviction of school teachers and nurses and janitors, working people who need a stable place to live and who can't find it in California because the housing crisis is so bad. And so what Prop 10 would do would be repeal a law, a state law that was passed in 1995 called the Costa-Hawkins Act. It was basically an act perpetrated by the landlord lobby, the real estate lobby up in Sacramento. And it said cities in California can't have rent control. All they can have, it prohibits rent control in every city in California. Instead, it says you can regulate rents, but as soon as a tenant leaves, you can raise the rent to the market, to whatever the market is. So if you're living in an apartment that's cost $1,200 a month, and you've been living there for 5 or 10 years, and you expect to stay there, landlords are going to harass you to leave, which happens all over the state, and then you can get $2,500 or $3,000 for that same apartment. So it doesn't require cities to do anything. Most cities will not pass anything about rents, but in cities that have the most severe housing crisis and have a lot of renters, like Los Angeles and San Francisco, San Bernardino, Oakland, San Diego, and some smaller cities, they will probably want to do something to protect the housing stock and to protect the renters. And so if Proposition 10 passes, then cities will have the option to have rent control. So it's really a form of local control. It basically gives back to cities the power that they had before the landlord lobby persuaded the state legislature to pass this Costa-Hawkins Act.
Exactly. Now, you said something that I want to get a bit of a clarification, because in the booklet that we're all reading in order to get ready for the election, it says that several California cities, including Los Angeles, have laws that are basically rent stabilization or rent control laws. How did they get to do that?
Well, cities can still pass rent regulation, but they can't have rent control. What they can have is, as I said earlier, when a tenant leaves, it's called vacancy decontrol. When a tenant leaves, then they can raise the rent to the market. So that creates the perverse incentive for landlords to harass tenants to leave, and it basically allows landlords to raise the rent and basically gouge people. So, everybody thinks that landlords deserve a fair return. And under the state constitution of California, landlords are required to have a fair return. So it doesn't freeze rents. If you have real rent control, it allows the cities of the city governments allow rents going up 3% a year, 5% a year, whatever the cost of living is. So they do calculations about what does it cost landlords for utilities and for maintenance and for finance, and allows them to raise the rents accordingly. But it doesn't allow them to take advantage of the shortage and raise rents, so far that people can't afford to live there anymore. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about stability of the housing stock and protecting tenants and the housing stock from being wiped out as affordable housing, so that, as I said, school teachers and nurses and janitors can afford to live in our cities and not have to commute 2 hours to get to work.
How big is the lobby against this? Because what I see on TV is I see a whole lot of no commercials, and quite honestly, I haven't seen one yes commercial. to be honest with you. But I see a lot of no's.
There are some yes commercials. So the voters should know, like, who's behind the no campaign, right? The people behind the no campaign are Wall Street investors, like Steven Schwartzman, the head of Blackstone. Blackstone, for the last 5 or 6 years, has been gobbling up all over the country and in California, gobbling up single-family homes that have been foreclosed on and renting them. They are the biggest landlords now in California. And so Blackstone put in $2 million into the campaign. Into the no campaign. And Jeff Palmer, who is the biggest landlord in Los Angeles, and he's built these really ugly apartment buildings all over Los Angeles. He's put in $2 million. He's also a big Trump supporter. He gave $2 million to Trump 2 years ago. And so they're going to outspend the yes side probably by 10 to 1. Maybe. Wow. They've raised over $100 million. So, I've gotten it. I'm a homeowner. You've gotten it. We've all gotten mailings. Mm-hmm. We've all seen television commercials for the no on yes side, no on 10 side. And they are, their commercials are full of lies, full of propaganda. But as Goebbels said, Hitler's propaganda minister, if you repeat a lie enough times, people believe it. We're hoping to persuade people to recognize that there's a severe housing crisis in California. We need to build more housing, for sure. But we can't solve that problem immediately. And there are people suffering, people paying 50, 60% of their income just to put a roof over their head. And we need to protect those people now, or else the cities will be emptied of the middle class and the poor, and we'll have gentrification throughout California, and the workers that need to go to work will be living in the outskirts. And one other point I want to make is that rent control for those cities that have it is actually good for business. It may not be good for the landlords. I understand why they're going to be against it. But if tenants are paying less to the landlord, they'll have more money to spend in the local economy. They'll be able to go shopping for clothes and for food, and they'll be able to go to the movies and get a haircut.
So it can stimulate local economy.
So it can stimulate a local economy. So if I were the head of the Chamber of Commerce, I would be endorsing Prop 10 because it's going to put more money in people's pockets and they'll spend it locally.
Let me ask you something, because when I went again through the booklet, I was a little bit surprised and frankly shocked that in the arguments against Prop 10, the prominent name here is Alice Huffman, who's listed as the president of the California State Conference of the NAACP. I would be shocked by that, and why is she on that side rather than on your side?
Well, you should be shocked, and it is shocking. And here's what happened: she is a lobbyist, and the no side, the landlord lobby, the real estate lobby, is paying her $700,000. According to an article in the LA Times a few weeks ago, paying her $700,000 to lobby against tenants and against affordable housing. And so she, as the president of the NAACP, persuaded her board
to get behind her.
To get behind her. That's the local chapters of the NAACP are not taking that position. Mm-hmm. But the state NAACP is, because Alice Huffman is basically taking a bribe from the real estate industry in order to make money.
Well, hell, if I got paid $700,000, I wouldn't need rent control either.
That's right.
Think about it.
And one of the scare tactics that they're using is to say that this affects single-family homeowners. That's not true.
That's a lie, right? So if you own your own home and you live there, you're not going to be covered by rent control. It does allow cities to have rent control on single homes that are absentee owned, but there's no city in the country that has rent control that is going to put rent control on a two-family house that you live here.
It'd be politically impossible to do that.
Right. Yeah. What they're getting at, what they're trying to get at by allowing that, excuse me, is that, as I said earlier, all these absentee owned corporate Wall Street landlords like Blackstone who've been gobbling up all these single-family foreclosed homes
Right.
and renting them out for skyrocketing, outrageous rents. You know, they own tens of thousands of units of rental housing, and that should be covered, but not the person that owns a single-family home and down the street owns a duplex or has 3 other houses somewhere. They're not going to be covered. There's no city in the country that does that. There's no city in California that does that. This is not about homeowners. This is about protecting tenants. And one problem we have in California is that the cost of owning a home has been going up so fast that even middle-class families that thought that they were going to own a home someday are now finding themselves as renters. Their backs are against the wall. They're spending 30, 40, 50% of their income just to rent an apartment, and they're angry. And for them, the rent is too damn high, too. And so what you've got is a situation where the majority of renters in California, who are about half of the whole population, are feeling the squeeze. Rents are going up twice as fast as incomes. Landlords are making a killing, right? And it's time to put the brakes on that and to have some reasonable laws that allow cities to raise rents gradually rather than have landlords take advantage and exploit tenants and rent gouge.
Sure. We have a few minutes, and you can get in on the conversation by calling us at 626-794-8585. You're over here this time. 626-794-8585 is our number. Dre, I want to bring it home a little bit.
Okay. I was just about to
Because
do that.
if Prop 10 were to pass, what is the political will in the City Council of Pasadena to actually put out a rent control or a rent stabilization
There was
ordinance?
an attempt in Glendale and Pasadena to pass local rent control ordinances. Both of them failed. Now, I'm going to tell you the issue that we will have in Pasadena.
And would that have to go to the people, or is that something that the City Council could do?
The City Council could push something. They could. But I will tell you why right now it probably will not happen. We saw a graphic at the beginning that listed most of the council people. Show me one who does not own rental property, or show me one that does not work in real estate. The ones who don't own rental property work in real estate, and some probably both. So they are landlords. So that alone, when you talked about the landlord lobby, you're over here. It's in their best interest. It's how people put food on the table in Pasadena. But I still believe, and you can comment on this, that I agree with everything you said. The rate that rents are rising at this point, I do believe at some point Pasadena will be forced to act, and I think they will be forced to act just like on minimum wage. When the state says, maybe in 10 years, 5 years, I don't know, that we are going to do something, Pasadena will do what it always says and say, we're going to come up with our own ordinance so we don't cede control to the state and we won't be at their mercy, is what I think will happen in a lot of municipalities around the state.
Yeah. It's really perverse in a way because, I mean, I think of myself as an old guy, and I'm living in a house. And usually someone my age starts to think about downsizing. And the truth is, I couldn't. Because I could not move into a rental, have a rental that's anywhere near as low as my mortgage is. and the mortgage is low because of Prop 13. So we have control on the property owner side, but we have no control on the rental side.
Let me give you this example.
And that does not seem to make sense.
Let me give you this example, and then I want Peter to jump back in. When my parents bought their home in Altadena in 1969, 2-story, courtyard, Spanish stucco, beautiful place. My dad at that point made $39,000 a year. You know how much the house was? $39,000.
Yeah.
If my dad were alive and still working, his salary would not be the same as the worth of that property. There's no way that it would be.
That's right.
I'm middle class. My wife and I can't afford a house. So the rubber band is going to snap back or snap.
And it's hard to afford a rent. So for people that can't afford a house,
then you got to rent.
They should be able to afford a
And now
rental.
renting is out of control.
Yeah.
The rubber band at some point will snap or snap back.
Yeah.
The average house in Pasadena costs $1 billion. And the average rents in Pasadena are over $2,000.
Did you say $1 billion?
No, $1 million.
Okay.
Okay.
I was going to say
Hasn't got that bad yet.
I was going to say I may as well just pack up and leave right now.
$1 million for a single-family home,
Yeah.
and over $2,000 for a two-bedroom apartment. And what Pasadena is building is almost all luxury housing.
Of course.
So a lot of renters have left Pasadena because they can't afford. That's one reason the schools are losing students, because people are being pushed out of the city. If we want to have a middle class in Pasadena, as well as having people that work with their hands and work in the stores, we need to do something about the rents, because they're not going to be able to afford to have a house. So I think you're right that there's going to be pressure. I work with a group called POP, the Pasadena's Organizing for Progress. There's a new group called the Pasadena Tenants Union. There's a lot of organizations in Pasadena that are going to start to organize the tenants. Tenants represent half the people in Pasadena. Right. They tend not to vote as much as they should. And so we're going to do an all-out campaign to get tenants to register to vote. And I think that'll make a difference. Either we're going to get the city council to pass rent control, first just cause eviction and then rent control, or we're going to go to the ballot in Pasadena and collect the signatures. And I think in the 2020 election, where there'll be a big turnout because it'll be a huge year, I think we could win rent control either through the city council or through the ballot. And it is true that most of the members of city council have own rental apartments, or they work for the real estate industry, but they also want to get reelected.
Of course.
Right? And if the renters get angry and they get organized, they're going to have their voices heard. And I was involved in the campaign to pass the minimum wage here in Pasadena 2 years ago.
I remember that.
When we first started, there wasn't one single vote on the city council for the minimum wage, and it won 8-0.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, boy, that went fast.
Yeah, way too fast.
Peter Dreier, thank you so much for joining us.
My
and
pleasure.
Please come back anytime.
Okay.
And in the meantime, is there a number you want to give, or something you want to give for people to reach the Yes on 10 folks?
They can call. They can go on the website, go Yes on 10, and it'll give them the name of their local organization.
Great.
Because every city has its own campaign.
Right.
Great.
Yeah.
And then very quickly, Peter and I are going to be together on Sunday at an event called Bagels and Ballots at the Pasadena Jewish Temple in Altadena on Altadena Drive. And we're going to have the executive director of the Pat Brown Institute, Rafe Schoenstein, and people from the League of Women Voters. Come join us. It's open to the public, and I think you'll enjoy it at 9:45 on Sunday.
All right.
That's it. All right,
Fast.
folks. I'm Barry Gordon.
And I'm Andre Coleman.
We'll be with you next week. NewsRap, live at 5.
Have a great weekend.
Learn the facts about Measure I. On November 6th, Pasadena's voters will decide on Measure I, a 3/4-cent local sales tax. What is Measure I? In July, the Pasadena City Council unanimously placed the Pasadena Infrastructure/Community Essential Services Protection Measure I on the November 6th ballot. If enacted, Measure I will provide a locally controlled funding source to address community priorities identified by the public, such as maintaining fire, police, and paramedic services and 911 response times, repairing streets and sidewalks, keeping fire stations open and upgraded, improving neighborhood and school safety, maintaining after-school and senior programs, and addressing homelessness. How does Measure I improve fire safety? Engineers have said that in a major earthquake, Pasadena's aging fire stations would likely be rendered inoperable, crippling the ability of first responders to address major medical emergencies, search, and rescue. If enacted, Measure I provides funding to repair and upgrade aging fire stations, bridges, and city emergency shelters to meet current seismic safety standards, better preparing our city for disasters. What are other infrastructure needs addressed by Measure I? The city of Pasadena is 132 years old and has aging infrastructure which needs to be repaired and upgraded. Measure I funds upgrades to deteriorating city streets and sidewalks before it costs taxpayers more in the long term. How does Measure I address homelessness? Pasadena now has one of the largest homeless populations in the San Gabriel Valley, and homelessness has increased 18% from 2017. If enacted, Measure I provides funding to address mental health, substance abuse, and job training to respectfully help individuals, veterans, and families with young children transition away from and stay off the street while ensuring business districts, parks, and public areas are safe and secure for everyone. What is Measure J? Why two measures?
If enacted, Measure I generates approximately $21 million annually in locally controlled funding that can't be taken by the state. Measure J is a companion advisory measure suggesting spending priorities should Measure I be adopted. How do these measures help children? Measures I and J help support more than 18,000 Pasadena students with continued funding for city-run children and youth after-school, summer, and physical fitness programs. Supporting quality, public neighborhood schools was also a priority identified by the public that would be addressed by these measures. How can we be sure Measure I will be spent on local services? By law, funds generated by Measure I are required to be spent on local needs. No money can be taken by the federal government, county, or state. Locally controlled funding from the measure would be subject to strict accountability provisions, including the independent audits and online release of expenditures to ensure funds are spent as promised to voters. What will this cost me? If enacted, Measure I generates $21 million annually through a 3/4 cent sales tax. Measure I is not a property tax on homeowners, and visitors to Pasadena will pay their fair share of the costs to use our parks, roads, and public safety. Measure I does not apply to food purchased as groceries or prescription medication. When is the election? The election is November 6, 2018. Register to vote online at www.sos.ca.gov/elections. For more election information, visit cityofpasadena.net.